Now for tonight, instead, we're going to talk about building level systems that promote professional, actually it's district and building level systems that promote professional capacity and family community engagement. How about a definition, my friends, of capacity? Give me a definition of professional capacity, a working definition.
Having people in your own district capable of leading professional development or understanding, being experts in their areas.
Yes, very good. Very good. That's it, Karen. We can become more particular, and we will tonight, but that's in a nutshell. All right. And of course, there's such a thing as teacher capacity and administrator capacity, board member capacity, district level capacity. It's all about competence and the capability to get things done. All right. For instance, to give an example, just to stress the point, if I had a first year teacher, one might doubt the capacity of that teacher to handle extreme discipline problems in the classroom, only because of the lack of experience. That could be remediated with more experience, professional development, and coaching, thereby increasing their capacity to get the job done. So tonight, that's what we're going to talk about, that as well as family and community engagement, particularly at the building level. So professional capacity. This is a good web resource, by the way. It's called the Glossary of Education Reform. You might want to Google it and put it in your bookmarks. I've used it a number of times in previous classes, and each time I need to go to it for a definition, I find a good one. So out of the Glossary of Education Reform, web-based resource, they define capacity as educators typically use the term capacity in reference to the perceived abilities, skills, and expertise of school leaders, teachers, faculty, and staff, most commonly when describing the capacity of an individual or school to execute or accomplish something specific, such as leading a school improvement effort or to teach effectively. So pretty good, Karen. You paraphrased that very well. Now, the phrase building capacity, a widely used, oh, sure, Karen, sorry, thanks for suggesting it. All I can do is this. That's all I can do, otherwise it goes off the screen. I can try this. Hang on, Karen. Let's make the whole screen bigger. That helps, right, Karen?
Well, I think you have to switch from the remote webcam meeting format to the presentation. There you go.
Oh, there's an extra button for me to click, and I didn't click it. Thought I did, but I guess I didn't. Now you can see me, Karen? Okay, thanks, Jerry Lee. So a widely used bit of educational jargon refers to any effort being made to, well, this is now building capacity, not capacity, but building capacity. It's any effort being made to improve abilities, skills, and expertise of educators. When these terms when these terms and phrases are used in education contexts without qualifications, specific examples, or additional explanation, it may be difficult to determine what the term is referring to. Now, why did I put this in here? I know why. All right, it's in a bad spot. All right, well, I put that in a bad spot, but because I'll forget to come back to it. What I put on the screen here is in reference to professional development. Because one of the surest ways to increase capacity is to train around something, all right? To teach. I'm trying to increase your capacity right now, and when you're in your classrooms, you're trying to increase capacity as well. So why I put this up here is to draw your attention to the fact that if professional development is an example of capacity building, you all may or may not know that holders of professional certificates, like all of you, and level 3 teaching assistant certificates, I'll ask you about that in a minute, are required to maintain their certificates through continuing professional development. Specifically, the professional certificate holder must complete 175 hours of professional development, and the level 3 teaching assistant certificate holder 75 hours within 5-year professional development period to render the certificate valid. Anyone who might not have been aware of that, does your district track this? Do you
Do
know?
we have to do that if we're permanently certified
Yeah,
or just professionally? I think if I have the permanent certification from
It's professional.
2000, I didn't need that.
no, this
It's
is everybody.
It's just professionally certified staff, and you're if a teaching assistant, it's a level 3.
Jerry Lee's in Human Resources. Say that again, Jerry Lee.
It's only professionally certified staff for instructional, and then for teaching assistants, there's multiple levels. So the TA level 3 is the equivalent to a professional. So it's only when you hold a TA level 3 and a professional. And actually, this all changed. It's now 100 hours for both.
Thank you. I took this off the state ed website. Okay, no complaints. I took it off the state ed website, and it still says this. Jerry Lee, here, let me show my ignorance. When I retired, there was still permanent. Professional is permanent, isn't it?
Well, permanent is permanent. Professional is you have to complete these hours in order to remain kind of permanent.
Yeah. So this applies to everyone with teaching certificate.
Well, if you have a grandfathered, so if you have a certificate that is permanent, it'll even say permanent or professional. Permanent do not have to do that. They're grandfathered in. They have to register every 5 years, but they don't have to complete the PD to keep their certificate intact.
All right, then that's news to me, because back when I was practicing, this applied to permanents, I believe as well, and we kept track of these hours for that purpose. Let's see, Karen says, permanent got grandfathered. Jerry Lee kindly confirmed that. Starting 6 years ago, no one can get a permit just about the time I left, Karen, yes. Well, my point still stands that professional development is just not a nicety. It's not a luxury. It's a requirement. So at least on that point, if we're using professional development as a way to increase capacity, it's required. Now, Jerry Lee, so you're in Human Resources. I hope you don't mind telling me the truth here. Do you do a good job of tracking your professional development hours?
Well, so we used to when we were responsible for reporting to the state. Now that it's all changed and they're called CTLE hours now, and it's 100 hours, the state has said the district isn't responsible for reporting anymore. So there used to be a portal that we would go through.
Yes.
Now the staff member the staff member is responsible for maintaining those. So
Oh, really?
we don't anymore. I still think we should, because we should know if our staff is in jeopardy, but that is something that we could do better at now.
Oh. All right. So thank you, Jerry. This is too tempting a tidbit to pass up. Think about systems thinking and what Jerry Lee just said. So if we apply systems thinking to the fact that now individual teachers with professional certification are maintaining and reporting their own hours, if you apply systems thinking to that, and Jerry Lee mentioned it, what problems do you see there?
It's hard to tell if people are actually keeping up on this or not. So you'll have a lot of people at the last minute who'll have to put in their hours.
Exactly, Shannon. So kind of took the district out of the equation. Good, Shannon. Jerry Lee, what's the consequence? Is there a unit in Albany that's holding people accountable for not getting their hours in? Because I got to think that this has got to be a mess across the state.
Yeah,
It is.
so it is. the state is supposed to be the one who would take the certification away if someone doesn't meet the hours. I will say I did have a staff member years ago when we were under the old system, the 175 for teachers, who really didn't even come close to completing 175, only had like 50 or less. And we reported it to the state and they basically said, we're busy, you know, you guys can handle it, the district, whether or not you want this person to continue working. So even when they had the old system in place, nobody ever, I don't think, pulled the certificate away. So I don't think that they're probably doing it now either.
So, what a system we've got. Amanda, please.
I have to do this, and I don't know if it's different because I'm a non-district school, but what we're told is we keep track of it in a spreadsheet and we keep our certificates just in case the state asks us for it, but they may never ask us for it.
Thanks, Amanda, for that enlightening reassurance. Tanya, you seem to have some information on this too.
No, I in terms of, I mean, it also depends, going back to your comment regarding systems. You know, now the burden of monitoring your CTLE credits is to the teacher, and not all teachers have a system. Districts may have had systems that were in place, may no longer have them. So there's a consistency issue. And yeah, they're very short staffed at the Office of Teaching Initiatives. So at this point, I think what my colleague said earlier about documenting them, having them on file in the event the state does ask you, because at this point with a small staff, it would be very difficult for them to sort of review and monitor all that. But I know in my BOCES, we have an MLP. I have no doubt many of you put and keep track of your professional development hours on MLP. All I would suggest is if you do, make sure you export all your hours to an Excel sheet and save it on your own personal computer. I only say that because we had a former employee who just didn't transfer that information. And, you know, one of our districts are reluctant to provide that information for her. That's all.
All right, thanks, Tanya. By the way, my friends, let's not leave this yet. Let's do the math here. So 175 hours in 5 years, right? So divide 5 into 175. And what do you wind up? Well, 100. I'm sorry. Thank you. So divide 5 into 100. What is that? 20 hours a year? And how many superintendent's conference days are permitted every year? 4. So if you let's say you spend just 3 of those superintendent's conference days around teacher training, 7, we'll use it, let's even use a 7-hour day. 7, 14, 21. There you go. So that's a pretty goofy regulation if you break it down and think about it. Between doing the hours for it, you can get it by just participating in 3 superintendent's conference days with training. Then given the bookkeeping involved, which is amounting to pretty much nothing, and the accountability factor, it's a regulation with no meaning. So I guess all I can say, and even though I'm being recorded, welcome to New York State.
Right, Professor?
Yes, Tanya?
Just to add also, regarding to ENL teachers, those with TESOL certification and bilingual education extensions, according to Commissioner Regulations 154, those teachers are required to have 50% of their 100 hours focused specifically on professional learning centered on English language learners. And that causes some problems when, depending on what part of the state you're living in, the availability or accessibility to that type of training to support, ENL and bilingual education teachers.
Another very important piece of information. Thank you for sharing that, Tanya. I wasn't aware of that, which is confirming one of my fears all along. I guess any teacher has that fear, but in this position, I don't know everything, and I have to rely upon you all. And the longer I stay out of the business, the more acute that lack becomes. So thank you for that. Amanda says, my understanding is CTLE certificate only available for specific training, which your student says don't count for. Most of the training we attend outside of school do count. Well, we were told, we checked on this back when I was in the office, and we were told, BOCES told us this, our BOCES DS, that superintendent's conference days count, Amanda, so I don't know what to tell you.
Professor, can I also add? My
Please, Tanya.
understanding was, and please correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding was that I know, for example, our BOCES, and I believe districts had to do this as well when they developed their individual professional development plans. They were to require, if they were going to become a CTLE provider, they had to submit certain documentation as well as list all the potential professional development or people that they would in hand provide or may provide some type of professional learning for districts. And I know for OCM BOCES and Mid-State Arbor, when we submitted our plan for our own CTLE identification, we had to list and document all the vendors that we would potentially use that would fall under this umbrella of our, if you will, CTLE identification. So I'm not sure if that's happening at the district level. I was just trying to get clarification regarding that.
Thank you. I noticed Sarah's comment. Sarah, that was my understanding as well, that everything like that counted.
Well, but Jerry Lee just
I
also,
gotta say, not meetings though. I didn't think meetings did, but everything else did.
Jerry Lee also just commented, but it used to be that any training that the school provided would count, but now you have to submit training beforehand to make it count for the CTLE or not. So not every training does count.
Thank you for that too. All right, so I'm glad I put this up here because it brings up a good point, and that is the complexity of New York State regulations, and how sometimes you have to dig, and even when you dig, you find out that it's a difference without a distinction, or something's not being followed up on, or it's a dead end. That being said, and to bring this back into a positive light, this regulation here doesn't by any means diminish the power of professional development to change the capacity, improve the capacity of staff in our buildings. And that's what we want to stick with, all right? So I asked myself the question that when implementing the continuous school improvement process, what capacities may need to be built upon and or reinforced? And possibly you can add to this list. What? So what process did we discuss when examining Bernhardt and the CSI model? Okay. What knowledge and or skills are necessary to successfully implement CSI? Well, if we take a look at continuous school improvement, and you're familiar with this vertical graphic, you can recall that these were the knowledge and skills that Bernhardt urges us to use. And so these are capacities we need. Planning. Remember how we talked about asking questions? Ooh, here's a good opportunity for a test. Who can remember the mini unit on asking questions? Who can come up with this is a review. Who can come up with a one-way data question, including one form of data?
How many boys are there in the 9th grade?
Good, Jesse. Demographic data. How many boys in 9th grade? Excellent, Jess. I guess that sun is doing you some wonders out there. The vitamin D is sparking your brain. Now, taking off from Jesse's correct answer, give me a two-way, say with demographic and student learning. Two-way question. Sarah's got it up there. How many 9th grade students pass the living environment regents? Very good. What percent of special ed students graduate? Shana, very good. You've got it. Now, a three-way question. Connie, yours is right too, but that's that's two demographic, two factors. Let's go three ways. I got to put the shade down. Take an extra 10 seconds to think. Somebody have one? I see something. How many ninth grade African-American males, there's demographics, who reported feeling safe at school? That's perceptions. Past the regents, algebra regents, that's student learning. Sarah, you get the prize. That's it. That's a three-way. Very good. Let's see, Jerry Lees. What instructional process did high absentee students respond to best with respect to perceptions? Oh, that's a curveball. What instructional process did high absentee students respond to best with respect to perception? I think that's just two-way. Well, no, you've got process in there. You've got demographics and perceptions. You asked it a little bit different than I'm accustomed to, Jerry Lee, but that's a three-way data question. Very good. And let's finish this review with a four-way data question that you might ask, for instance, of your chief information officer. I'm proud of y'all. Doing a very good job with this one. Lots of times people forget this. Demographics, student learning, perceptions, and process. Come on, my friends, come up with something. Nobody wants to volunteer? No?
I'll go ahead. How many ninth grade African-American males reported feeling safe at school, passed the algebra regents, and were in Hillside program?
There you go, Jesse. There you go. There you go. Very good. Shana got one too. What percentage of special ed students, demographics, African-American males, demographics, feel safe at school, perceptions, have increased achievement on that? Well, that's still three-way. I don't see the fourth in there. So I guess you'd have to, what's NWEA stand for, Shana? NW?
It's just a achievement test that they give that measures the student's growth.
That's what I thought. So you have three there. I don't see the fourth process, but Jesse had it right. So thank you all for that. Very reassuring that you were able to remember that. Back to the knowledge or skills we need to promote continuous school improvement and would be the backbone of our capacity. Accessing data, knowing where to go, how to get it into the warehouse, for instance, a la Denny Atkinson. Analyzing the data, actually knowing once the data is put in front of you what it really means. Formatting the data, which was one of your assignments, as you recall, putting it into a PowerPoint so that you could communicate the results, all right, to people so that they could use it then to analyze it in their teams. Conducting research, because remember we talked about using research as well as being a way of predicting. Let's review that. Can anyone recall that? How do we use research to predict and then use that for school improvement? This is a little bit more detailed question. This is where we decided that if we had a goal like decreasing dropout rate, we would go to the research and find out that students who drop out of high school tend to be behind in their accumulated credits by the time they get into the 10th grade or 11th grade. Or if they have poor absentee, they have high absenteeism. That's what the research said. And then we would go into our data and find how many of our kids had poor or had high absenteeism or had were below their accumulated credits by the time they got 11th grade. And then we could pick out those kids and target them and deliver a service to them, a special programming. So being able to know how to conducting research is important. Communication skills or communication skills or communicating the results of all of our work, that's important. Critical and creative thinking, always. Team building, how to build a team. So these were all knowledge and or skills that Bernhardt referred to as imperative if you're going to work through this process. All right. What process did we discuss when examining curriculum, instruction, and assessment alignment? What knowledge and or skills are necessary to successfully align CIA? Well, remember this. We needed to know the knowledge of standards. We went and explored where to find it. You need to have a certain amount of curriculum writing skills. All right. This is something that's taught, that we aren't born with this. All right. BOCES does a great job of offering workshops on how to write curriculum. So that would be important. How to construct valid and reliable tests. Remember, we talked about that as well. How to construct good tests. Having master teacher skills, that's important to improve student learning, obviously. Knowledge of pedagogical options, different learning, different teaching and learning strategies, that's important. These days, technology, a competence with technology was an important capacity. Team building, an important capacity, and knowledge of psychometrics. All of these knowledge and skills, all right, are prerequisites if we want to align curriculum instruction assessment, as well as borrowing from these here. And you know, we are the masters of all trades and jack of all trades, and maybe the masters of none, those of us in education. We just do so many things, so many different things. And so the list of capacities really just goes on and on sometimes. But I wanted to focus on a few that we've already talked about to try to put this into a frame of reference. So what are our options? How does a building level leader or district level leader build prerequisite capacities around, well, things like this? And there are many more ways. We tend to think about professional development most of the time, right? But I was able to Google and find a laundry list of different things that suffice. And maybe you can give me examples in your own institutions, your own organizations, where you are trying some of these ways and means, and whether you've had success or not. So by furthering education and knowledge in a teacher's subject area, the learning new scientific theories, expanding knowledge of different historical periods, or learning how to teach subject area concepts more effectively. Yeah, well, we just talked about that. But let's be a bit more specific. How about training or mentoring in specialized teaching techniques that can be used in many different subject areas, such as differentiation, varying teaching techniques? Anyone right now attached in your district to a big, relative to the second bullet, training in specialized teaching techniques? Anybody have anything special going on? Karen?
In our district, we're attached to Thoughtful Classroom by Harvey Silver and Kagan Strategies.
We
We
did
had
Thoughtful
teachers-
Classroom for 3 years in Gowanda before I left, yeah. And how are your staff responding to that?
It was a slow go. There were special teams of teachers who first got trained, and then they've turnkeyed it around, but now everyone's on board.
Perchance, are you aligning that professional development with your evaluations?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, you
When the
are?
evaluators go in, they're looking for those things. Yes.
Your evaluators are going into the classroom looking for those teaching techniques being employed.
Yes.
And how are staff responding to that accountability?
At first, they weren't used to it, but now that they know that that's what they're looking for, it's easier to make sure that you're implementing it.
Very good, very good. Amanda says, we are implementing the Mind Up curriculum for growth mindsets and for behavior. Quickly, Amanda, tell us about that.
We just got our first training on the Mind Up curriculum. It's to promote growth mindsets in the classroom, having a growth mindset in the classroom where students are not afraid of failure, but embracing failure is something that you can learn from. And restorative justice has been going on since January, and that is using restorative practices instead of punitive punishment. And we've just started doing peacekeeping circles with the kids for the past like 4 months I've been doing them for. And they seem to be going really well. Everyone is a lot more excited about restorative justice than the Mind Up curriculum. That's going kind of slow. So
Very good. Is this required for all faculty?
it is. The restorative justice has been going out in what they call cohorts. So I was in cohort 1, and cohort 2 just started a few weeks ago, and then cohort 3 is supposed to start after we come back from spring break, but eventually it's required in every classroom.
Thanks, Amanda. Let me jump here. Jerry Lee, being an expert in human relations and contract implementation, does your district in any way reward teachers for participating in additional training?
We don't have like a stipend, but we did negotiate in a pot of money for each teacher to basically take and do what they want with that. So it's a smaller sum. It's like $400 per teacher to go on their own and do something that they want versus like a district. Like if we want you to go do something, like if we're implementing restorative practice or PLCs or something that we want you to go to training, we'll pay for that up and above and beyond the contractual language. But there's that we got that in 3 years ago, and so far it's been going well. It's not a lot, but it's something for each teacher.
Very good. On that contractual issue, I necessarily need an answer, but you all should be aware in your own contracts whether or not you are paid a stipend for attending workshops after hours, summertime in particular. Because oftentimes your contracts say that, or in other ways, people actually move up on a salary schedule, depending on how many hours they attend. So these are ways to promote capacity. How about this? Earning a certification in a particular educational approach or program, usually from a university or other credentialing organizations, such as teaching advanced placement courses or career and tech programs. This is popular, right? Advanced placement courses. How many of you have partnerships with colleges and universities where your students receive credit and the courses are taught by your teachers? Karen, you have that in Cheektowaga? And are your teachers trained and receive a certificate from the post-secondary institution that qualifies them to teach?
Yes.
And do they get an extra stipend by any chance or any extra recognition for teaching the AP courses?
Not from our district. I'm not sure if the colleges give them anything.
All right, very good. So that's going on in a lot of different places, like the 3+3 programs, 4+1, whatever. That's a different way. How about developing technical, quantitative, and analytical skills? That would be good for data work, right? That can be used to analyze student performance data. Yeah, and they use the findings to make modification academic programs. So they talk about developing technical, quantitative, and analytical. I would probably, first place I would look here would be the BOCES for this, and maybe the Winterick. Does anyone know of any particular PD that's offered on this topic? Technical, quantitative, or analytical skills that be used to analyze student performance data? Actually, I know for certainty that this is what BOCES does when they're training their data teams. Has anyone ever sat through BOCES data team training? Karen, you have?
Yeah, most of the time it's in relation to the state assessments and what the results are on those and how to improve it and make a goal for the following year.
Have any of you ever participated in regional scoring? Shana, when you participated in regional scoring, did you receive any type of in-service on that?
When we went to do the scoring, they basically trained us for a few hours first before we started scoring.
All right, so that there was some pre-service, if you will. All right. Also, learning new technological skills such as how to use interactive whiteboards or course management systems Some of you I've remarked on your reflections. I'm a big fan of peer coaching. And back when the ARRA money was available, we were able to afford technology instructional coaches. And boy, we got a lot of bang for the buck. And we sent the technology competent teacher around, our star technology teacher, to the teachers to teach them how to use the technology that was in your classroom. In particular, we had a big investment in whiteboards. So we had a person go around and train around whiteboards, and that was phenomenal, the results that we got. Rarely would you walk by a classroom and not see the teachers using it to their fullest extent, and not just, as a glorified blackboard. So that was very good. I'd recommend that too. Did someone have a hand up, by the way? Did I see a hand? How about improving fundamental teaching techniques, such as how to manage a classroom effectively or frame questions and ways to listen deeper thinking? That's a lot like the second bullet. Yolanda, I'd like to hear from you and Pauline as well. Those of you who work in alternative environments, what's going on in your environments to provide professional development or capacity building along some of the lines we're talking about now? Unmute, Yolanda, let's hear from you. Pauline, you're next.
I'm sorry, I thought I unmuted it. We
That's
do
okay.
a lot of individualized PD. Like, we notice sometimes with trans, like right now we're noticing that some of our teachers need a lot more support just with the basics. I'm not sure where the disconnect is coming from, if like the teacher programs now are different from, I don't want to say back in the day, but there's a lot of basic things that are missing with our teachers. So we're in the process now of trying to figure out what we can deliver, like with new teacher orientation and our first week back and how to prepare for that. But this is also an issue for us because we have such high turnover rates. It's like we're always starting from the beginning again.
That's such a big problem, Yolanda,
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. And if you think about it, and let's take BOCES, for instance, as the provider. And let's say BOCES is providing training in how to use the Danielson rubric for evaluators. Well, just think of the turnover in any BOCES region every year of how many new assistant principals and principals come on. So you literally have to almost like do everything every year in order to keep training everyone. It's a big burden. Thanks, Yolanda. Pauline, I'd like to hear from you, Pauline. How about the work in your organization to increase capacity?
We had just had our professional development just about 3 weeks ago, and we had training on the whiteboard. And right now we're still brainstorming how to teach that, introduce that classroom management piece. So right now that's where we are with that.
Excellent. That's good to hear. And Karen promoted too the instructional coaches give workshops at classroom management, question engagement, the whole staff. I love instructional coaches. I think they're one of the most effective. I think they're more effective than principals, frankly. Well, we're going to get into some of that later. Here's another option. Thanks, Pauline. Thank you, Yolanda. Working with colleagues such as PLCs. PLCs were a hot topic back in 2012, just before I was getting ready to retire. And everyone was talking PLCs. Are they still as trending now like they were back then? Do you all still, I see some head shaking. Jerry Lee, do you have PLCs in your building?
Yeah, we've been doing them for a while, but we just switched and are in the process of training all of our staff on a new way, like a new way to do them, I guess. It wasn't focused. Nobody was trained in the beginning. We did them, but we kind of did them haphazardly. So now we've actually built time into schedule, and this year was our first year of like really implementing them.
Okay, so that leads me to the question I want to ask. For those of you who have PLCs, professional learning communities, in your buildings, what supports do you have in place? What do you use to support them? Define that term support as you wish. And how do you hold them accountable?
So we have professional learning communities weekly by grade level, and our teachers have to fill out like an agenda, and then we usually sit in on the PLCs if they need us. Right now, we're getting to the point where our teachers are capable of like running them on their own. So we can always access, what they talked about, what they need, or anything like that if we're not there to help support them. And it also keeps us in the loop as far as what's happening and what's important at each grade level.
Very good, very good. Yolanda, is there any monetary recognition for PLC participation or PLC leaders?
Nope, not at this time.
No, I haven't heard much of that either. But that does come up, accountability and support.
Ours is built into our schedule where once a week we don't have to do one of our duties, and we meet as a PLC, and we have our instructional coaches are in there with us, and often an administrator.
So there's some capital being expended there, some time being built in by the district to promote PLCs. Very good. Yolanda and Jesse, thank you. How about developing specialized skills to better teach and support certain populations of students? Yep. I think Tanya was bringing this up earlier when she was elaborating on CR 54 and what's required for teachers of EL students. Right, Tanya, wouldn't that be applicable to this bullet right here? Very good. I see the thumbs up. Thank you. And acquiring leadership skills, such as skills that can be used to develop and coordinate a school improvement initiative or community volunteer program. Yeah, I mean, literally, you're sitting right now through capacity building, aren't you? One would hope that some of what we talk about in this class or any of your end-use class makes it back to your work site. So you're literally now in the middle of capacity building. Anything else on this topic? Yeah, we do have more. How about pairing new and beginning teachers with more experienced mentor teachers or instructional coaches? You know that everyone's, well, I shouldn't say that because in 5 years things have changed. When I left, it was required that we all had mentoring programs. Is that still a requirement? Who has a mentoring program that they're proud of and wants to talk about? I see Amanda's hand up. Go ahead, Pauline.
There are mentoring programs in my district, but I have no data as to its improvement or how it's taking place. It's kind of low-keyed, and I don't know why. It should have been exposed some more. So that's all the information I have on that.
You bring up a good point, Pauline. I think generally, and if anyone disagrees, please do, but I think generally, Pauline, we start off and we do these new initiatives, but at the get-go, we forget to establish any measurable objectives. For instance, the teachers who will participate in the mentoring program, their students will achieve more, set the measure. We don't do that. We think about it afterwards, and then we wonder, geez, I wonder if this is really working. Well, we do that too often. Thanks, Pauline. Pauline, we got you to offer. I didn't have to tickle you to get a response. You came up with your own tonight. I'm proud of you, Pauline. Good for
Thank you. I'm a good listener.
It's always been one of my problems, Pauline. I'm real bad at that. Amanda.
We had a really big turnover this year. So all of the teachers that have been there 3 years plus got a mentor, and I got 2. And so it seems to be really effective. There's a lot of things that don't get covered in our training because we're an agency that are necessary for the school. And those things get covered in the mentoring sessions, and we have to meet with our mentors once a week. And then every 3 weeks, an administrator comes into our meetings, and it seems to be a more effective way to get the information to the new staff that had not in the past been getting to them that they needed.
Thanks, Amanda. We when the reg came out, we put together in Gowanda what I thought was a very good mentoring program. It was collaboratively developed. We were able to negotiate into the contract that new teachers would be required to attend 2 days of pre-service training in the summertime. So that was a win at the bargaining table. And we also had 3 after-school staff development sessions as well. So between the early days, the pre-service and the days afterwards, we trained them around simple things like emergency procedures, all right, applicable policies, student handbook, how to get around the community, how to be, if you will, a Gowanda teacher, the things you had to do. Then during the school year, we had workshops on special education law. We had workshops in general, on education law. And we we had a workshop on something that I dubbed how to survive the probationary period. But my good friends, Dan and Amy Cassidy, the teacher union presidents and vice president, convinced me that it should be how to thrive during the probationary period. And that was a good workshop as well. And then we also assigned mentors to them and contractually did it in the contract that they had to spend a certain amount of hours with them. And it worked really quite well. And we had some non-onerous, easy, if you will, accountability measures built in. And we always got good reviews because we did ask them, Pauline, at least we asked the student teachers if they thought it was worthwhile. Not student teachers, but the novice teachers, and they said it was a worthwhile. But we didn't do anything to check effectiveness in the classroom, Pauline, so we fell short of that as well, just like you mentioned. How about conducting action research to gain a better understanding of what's working or not working in your school, and then use the findings to improve education quality and results? Is anyone, I've never been involved in action research. Has anyone ever been involved in action research? Can you tell us about that? Sarah, you're being way too quiet tonight. I'm going to have to pick on you, Sarah Horton.
I've never really been involved in action research. We have data coordinators who look into different data, but I've never really personally been involved with it.
Thanks, Sarah. Neither have I. If I was, I didn't realize it. Karen, can you elaborate?
Yeah, I'm part of one with Buff State where we do a video lesson study. So I teach the same physics lesson one way to one group and a different way to my other class, and they get videotaped, and it's happening in other districts, and we sit down and compare the 2 ways.
Pauline, there's the answer right there. Action research is the answer to the problem we just talked about. Notice it was done in conjunction with the university. Notice that it had an experimental and control groups, and one treatment to one group and one treatment to the other group, and then you would observe the results.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right, Pauline. Karen, did you or are you benefiting from it? Sounds very intriguing.
I am benefiting from it, and it's comparing the old way of teaching science to the new way that's aligned with the new standards.
Wonderful. Thank you for that example. We should all do more action research by the sounds of things. How about earning additional formal certifications such as National Board of Fresh Teaching Standards? Has anyone ever tried to get one of those? I understand those are difficult to get. Those advanced teaching certificates from the National Board. All right. And of course, attending graduate school to earn an advanced degree, which is what we're doing right now. So I thought it was helpful or useful that we look at all the different ways, and we just don't think about capacity building as professional development on superintendent's conference days. I'm reflecting right now too, the role of an administrator and your role as future or current leaders in this whole capacity building milieu. Yolanda, I'll bet you that on a regular basis, you find yourself as a leader in the building, building capacity. When you notice a staff member might be falling short in any particular way, you get out the carrot and the stick every now and then, Yolanda?
Well, that depends. Every once in a while, I do, but it depends on the situation, how I actually deal with it and approach it. Very individualized.
Very individualized. I mean, it's important to not come off, if you're the principal, as the know-it-all principal who calls every teacher aside to correct them or to give them hints on how to do something better. Rare and far between is that individual anyways who knows that much. But one should never shy away from asserting your experience and your background and your previous success, working with a staff member who needs the help. I remember recognizing in one of our teachers, Shelley, I thought she could be a really good internal staff developer, kind of like a turnkey trainer. And you know how teachers are. I know how you are. You don't want to be rate busters. And I just mentioned to Shelley one day, would you mind doing a workshop for your colleagues? And boy, she just turned red and did not even want to think about doing that. But we needed, so eventually, well, I stayed with it and kept encouraging like that and giving Shelley in particular opportunities in meetings to just do a little bit. And it didn't take long for her teacher instincts to take over. And before long, she was doing just that. She's starting to act as a leader in team meetings, etc., and putting on workshops. And so don't ignore your ability to influence people and to improve their capacity through some very informal comments and mentoring. You can do it. You can do it. And the older you get in the profession, the more people look to you to actually do that. And as we're trying to build capacity, I want to keep coming back to some lessons here before. Let's not forget that we've got to adhere to the 6 systems of organizational effectiveness when planning capacity building initiatives. Because as I said to you weeks ago, these 6 systems really come in handy as guidelines, things that you should pay attention to whenever you're getting involved in an initiative. So if you've decided, let's just use the common initiative, to provide more robust and frequent professional development in your district that's more responsive to the needs of your teachers and is more embedded into what they're doing on a regular basis, well, make sure that you stick to the 6 systems, that you provide the vision, the strategic approach, and the structural alignment. That's your job. That you communicate it well. All right, I know this is repetition, but I've got to keep repeating it. Communication is important, that you have a communication plan for how you're going to roll out that new initiative. That you have accountability built in, which is why I asked Karen the question of how Karen is holding people accountable for their thoughtful classroom in service, and whether or not she's aligned that to their evaluations. And thankfully, over in Cheektowaga, Karen said, yes, in fact, we do that. All right. Accountability can also be making sure that people attend the workshops. You have summer workshops and they're in a village or someplace far away or town far away from the school district and no one attends, no administrator attends, and just the teachers. Well, how do you know that they went? I'm sorry to say, you can't put it past some people. Granted, a small minority, but a small minority will put in the claim for the $40 and they will not have attended. So you would need to have accountability measures in there. All right. You need to have a simple delivery system that's portable, that's not complex. All right. And make sure that whatever you do is able to attract and recruit and retain good people. And back to Pauline's correct critique, there needs to be some measurements in your initiative to determine whether or not you're achieving the goals and the objectives that you initially set out. So let's not ever forget to keep bringing up this slide and use this as a guideline to make sure that you hit each of these important indicators as you are planning and moving forward. All right. So at what time is it? I can't see because I've got my screen all the way big. 6:10. Yeah, you are going to get out of here early, no doubt. Some suggestions that you should tie your professional development to instructional strengths and weaknesses data derived from evaluations and walkthroughs. I think this is pretty sophisticated, and I would applaud anyone who's doing this. Is anyone doing this now? Collecting data vis-a-vis evaluations or walkthroughs from your observations, cataloging it in such a way and trying to detect trends, like too many of our teachers have unruly classroom environments. Too many of our teachers have unsafe classroom environments. Too many of our teachers are not using instructional pedagogies or pedagogies that align with standards, et cetera, et cetera. Has anyone reached that point where you're collecting data from your observations and using that to define your needs for PD? Karen, go ahead, Yolanda. Then Karen, you're next. Then Tanya.
Okay.
Go ahead, Yolanda.
We have we use the program Standards for Success, and it actually creates the data points for us from what we observe in observations and walkthroughs, and it gives us patterns.
They actually give you the so I don't know. All right, say the name of the product again.
Standard for Success.
Standards for Success. Anyone using that besides Yolanda? That sounds pretty cool, Yolanda. Yolanda, just for the heck of it, Google it and attach a link in the chat room. Then I said, Karen, I saw a hand up, then Tanya. Karen, are you doing this in Cheektowaga? What? Oh, you were just flying, your hands are just flapping around? I don't know what she's doing. Yolanda, I'm coming to you.
Hello.
I'm sorry, Tanya.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
Yeah, of course.
It's you, girls on the end. I mess
It's
up your
okay.
names.
It's okay. We're gonna become one entity soon. No problem, Yolanda. We'll come up
I've
with
done it more
something
than
later.
once. Yolanda, Tanya.
I know. In reference to that, we have worked with some districts in our region by conducting shadowing site visits. So we use sort of the protocol that's outlined in Ivania Soto's work on L shadowing to allow teachers as well as administrators and our Arbor staff to just follow an L all day during the course of the day to identify the type of interactions the students are having, the L students are having with their peers and their teachers. And it really has opened up new conversations and, if you will, new conversations about how to increase student interaction between, the student and their peers and with the teacher. And for my team, on the second piece to that is the work that we do at Midstate Arbor, and our resource specialists are building their own capacity because many of them are teachers that are coming into the work that may not necessarily have coaching background. So we've done a lot of observations where we pinpoint certain aspects of professional learning that we're trying to shift or work towards. So for example, when we look at professional learning, not professional development, there's less emphasis about directive or more facilitative learning and taking less time and telling teachers what to do and encouraging them to engage in a conversation and discussion about their approaches to meeting the needs of students.
Yeah, very good. Because teachers are not real good at being told what to do. We all have a prideful streak in us that doesn't like to be told what to do. We like the act of self-discovery and free will. Good. Very good, Tanya. Karen's back. She's done mucking around with her mouse here. Karen, tell us about what you're doing in regards to aligning your evaluations with your PD.
So we have small little walkthroughs that we just click little check boxes, and it's not related to a teacher, but that we were in someone's class. We check that we did that. And we're looking for things such as objectives posted, number of opportunities students can respond within a certain time frame. And then we put all that data together and see if it's enough or if we need to do more PD on that.
Very good. So to me, this sounds like a profound way to go at present and in the future, to let our evaluations and our walkthroughs be more meaningful to the degree to which they align then and inform our capacity building, our professional development in particular. Also, too, something that we've done for a long time is to conduct the needs assessment surveys, to actually ask our staff what they need training in. Jerry Lee's actually going far and above and beyond that, not only asking them, but letting them determine themselves and giving them $400 to determine where they want to spend it. So conduct needs assessments to ask people what they would like, all right? We talked last week about collaborating with BOCES and other partners to deliver PD aligned to specific initiatives. I've been in the business for over 35 years, and when I started out back in the 80s, we provided professional development. I worked a lot with BOCES to provide PD, and we just, whatever looked good, we just kind of took it off the shelf and provided PD, and there wasn't a real good correlation between the PD and specific initiatives. And so it was just kind of a day to drink coffee and go to a workshop, and drink some more coffee and go to a workshop. Now we just can't afford that any longer. So you really need to deliver capacity building, professional development that's aligned to specific initiatives, all right? And connect capacity building to evaluation rubrics and recognize teacher efforts to pursue PD. We talked about that. Reward extra PD in the CBA. We talked about that. So actually agree to support it through the use of funds, all right? And that gets outlined in terms and conditions in the collective bargaining agreement. Then, of course, cooperate with your neighboring districts, especially small rural districts. This is where you get more bang for the buck. Has anyone ever cooperated with a neighboring district to provide PD or capacity building? That's what BOCES is all about, frankly.